Back in 2020, all I was doing online was streaming video games and very, very rarely making videos. A lot of stuff I would cover nowadays simply passed me by. Lost opportunities, dead drama. Not worth flashing back to, unless something dredges it up again. And that's exactly what's happened with the case of the Dungeons & Dragons robo-diddler. Crispy's Tavern decided to cover this COVID-era controversy in a video titled Adam Koebel and the Creepiest RPG Session Ever Recorded. To this day, the livestream that title refers to carries a warning for explicit sexual assault. And half a decade later, Crispy's Tavern saw fit to echo this disclaimer. And I was left wondering, did we watch the same thing? People are traumatized by this? I expected that people would be a bit less hysterical 5 years on, but it seems the tale of robo-rape has only been cemented as a true tragedy of D&D. And this most recent retelling is just as dodgy as the coverage back then. For those unfamiliar, in a nutshell, the incident involves a DM called Adam, controlling a mechanic NPC, and a player called Elspeth, controlling her robot character Johnny. Johnny has gone in for some repairs, but the mechanic wants to do a little bit more than that. You know how people can be a bit too into cars? This mechanic's a bit too into robots. And he comes on to Johnny, ultimately ending in him plugging a dongle into Johnny's neck that gives Johnny what's described as the robot equivalent of an orgasm. That is the explicit sexual assault. It's quite cringe, a little creepy, but let's calm down a second. Get some perspective, get real. And if that's too hard, just remember, you can't rape a toaster. More important anyway than that specific moment are the interactions that preceded it and the characterization of those interactions. Elspeth, the player in charge of the robot, is typically painted as having no agency, and Adam is painted as a railroading sex fiend GM. Crispy's commentary from a few days ago is a good example of this. He shows a clip that is awkward and then talks about it like this.
Oh, like his fingers on your face, smiling slightly.
Thanks, buddy. I really appreciate it. You know, that really makes me feel great.
But Adam would just not shut up. In fact, he would not shut up so hard that he would just continue to yap and yap and yap for minutes on end, continuously talking and giving the players zero agency in the situation. A situation that was quickly becoming more than a little intimate. We've gone past the fade to black era, and Adam Koebel is now narrating that this repair is giving Johnny an involuntary orgasm?
Okay, buddy, you didn't add the silence, but you did add some creepy ambience. And how he described the interactions, while it seems to be how many remember it, and how many will believe it went, having heard tellings like this, couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, the idea that players were given no agency is totally demolished if you let that clip play just a few more seconds. Elspeth's choice to have her character reject the advance results in Adam having his NPC completely back off in shame.
Thanks, buddy. I really appreciate it. You know, that really makes me feel great. Can you maybe, like, you know, I'm just gonna take like a step back here. Just a step.
Yeah, so he pulls his hand away and shakes his head and he's like, yeah, shit. So I just thought maybe I'm just running my mouth. I don't know. Never mind. And he like turns and he knocks a wrench off the table and he's like, shit. And he like kneels down to get it, and you see him, and I think you hear him, and he puts his hand on his head as he's like going to pick the thing up, and he's just like, stupid Rocket, come on, what are you doing? And he gets back
Johnny
up, and he's just like, and you can see he's trembling.
It could have, at that point, been over, but the problem, contrary to Crispy's analysis, is not railroading and a lack of agency, but precisely that Adam did let Elspeth talk and make choices for her character. They actually discuss for a while what Johnny might be thinking and what he might do.
I don't think he has the ability to recognize like he has been hit on before, but I'm not sure if he was ever programmed.
Imagine lots of drunk like housewives,
lots of drunk
husbands
people
abandon them, who are just like, oh, Johnny,
I don't think he's ever. Yeah, I don't think he's ever been programmed to respond like romantically or recognize attraction, right? I don't think he's ever. Yeah.
As a counterpoint, you are also not programmed to drive a car, Johnny.
That's so true.
Today is a day of exciting new
feelings. True. So I think he can see that this person wanted to display like affection or have like a tender moment.
A point often made about this incident is that Adam planned this. And I agree, I think that's very clear. However, I don't think he planned to have a molesting mechanic. I think he planned to give Elspeth this option for her character. And what I see in that brief discussion is him making sure she knows she can if she wants. It wouldn't be character breaking, he's done other things he's not programmed to do. As we saw, she found what he said convincing, and then she made a choice. Remember, she had just said,
he can see that this person wanted to display like affection or have like a tender moment.
She asserts that her character knew what was going on, and because of that, you'll hear that she says, so she has Johnny do this.
So he goes over to him and he kind of like puts his hand on his back and
You feel him like
Hey.
freeze up a little, like, oh God.
Hey, listen. I am open to new adventures. So I don't want you to feel weird about anything.
My character understands this mechanic was trying to show affection, so he goes over to the guy, touches him, and explains that he is open to new adventures, so don't feel weird about it. Call me crazy, given the conversation the player just had with the DM, sounds like she's decided, okay, something's on the table. The player, Elspeth's quitting and call-out video, doesn't necessarily disagree. She does, however, certainly point out that she had a problem with the specifics of what happened afterwards.
then seeing Rocket's disappointment, he says, hey, I'm down for new adventures. What does that mean to Johnny? Definitely not what happened next, which was getting an orgasm plugged into his sockets with some device that Rocket claims he's used many times.
Okay, so the issue is he went too far and it was too fast. She then explains that she'd talked with Adam about what she wanted for her character.
The kicker here is that before the episode, Adam wanted to know more about story arcs that I envisioned for Johnny. I said he definitely wanted upgrades to get rid of that bit crusher on his voice. We wanted to know more about the bartender who replaced Johnny, and specifically, I wanted Johnny to be able to say no to more people, including his friends.
Look, I don't want to sound too victim-blamey here, but she just told us that she was asking for it. She wanted opportunities for Johnny to say no to friends. Adam had a mechanic that Johnny's supposedly gone to before and is familiar with. Come on to Johnny. Seems like a perfect opportunity. Maybe not the kind of situation she was hoping for, but remember, when she had Johnny reject the mechanic backed off. Almost like a DM was giving a player exactly what they asked for. Elspeth continued in her call-out though. She recounted the exact orgasm USB stick moment and suggested that the problem was her character had no opportunity to say no.
The way the episode ended was Johnny laying down willingly and then having this completely alien sensation happen. He was expecting upgrades. He barely has the concept of romance. Then Adam ends the episode there, leaving no room for Johnny to refuse or even just punch Rocket for violating his space. It felt very premeditated, and I was shocked and angry.
Damn, that's real creepy and gross. Problem is, she wasn't being very honest here. A lot happened between Johnny saying he was open to new adventures and the USB stick being plugged in. And even if the character Johnny is a victim of something, Elspeth, the player in control, very clearly chose for this to happen. She, the player, is fully aware that something weird and sexual is happening, and she has Johnny, her character, say yes to it. 4 times. She does initially have Johnny use an analogy to explain, I guess, that he's not feeling it right now.
But I think it's kind of like when you have a glass of water and you're not really thirsty. You just kind of drink it, you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
This doesn't seem to have been understood, and the mechanic that Adam is puppeteering takes that as a sign to continue his pursuit.
So yeah, he's standing up and he says to you, he's like, his eyes are like wide. You can see him like almost like tearing up a little with like, oh God, it's happening. And
I think it's clear there's been a misunderstanding, but that should be effortless to clear up for any functioning adult. Here's how it continues.
he says to you, he's like, don't be scared. I've done it before. I can show you.
You're gonna tell me no one was picking up what the creepy mechanic was putting down? Here's how Elspeth has Johnny respond.
And
All right.
All right. Not, no, not, what do you mean, not, what are you doing? Perfect pause. Perfect chance to say literally anything other than an affirmative.
reaches over onto the table and he picks up some kind of like device, right? It's got a plug on one end and some buttons on the handle. And he says, I'm going to do it real gentle the first time and you tell me how it feels, okay?
Gonna do it gentle. Tell me how it feels. Even if Tardbot Johnny didn't understand what was going down, Elspeth, the real human being choosing how he behaves, absolutely knew. If she didn't understand, then she shouldn't go outside. It's not safe for her. And the response she chose for Johnny to make?
And
Okay, sure.
Okay, sure. Yes. Yes. Imagine someone plays a video game, makes these responses in that situation, and then complains that something weird happened. How much sympathy would you have? If Adam, instead of speaking, had coded this for her to play, the robot she made in the character creator would be just as molested. But would anyone care? You're right. There are significant differences, but they make this worse for her, and we'll get to it later.
he says there's a port in the back of your neck. You can feel it. And he gently, like, he puts his hands up like you're a scared animal. He's like, let me just, and he reaches up to touch it, right? And you can feel it. There's a
Oh look, another quick affirmative. You're telling me that all these chances to say okay couldn't have been chances to say no or refuse or question?
port back there. And it's like, as far as you know, it's like a firmware update port. It's hidden at the base of your skull. You don't remember, like, it's never been accessed while you were conscious.
Oh look, here's Adam making it crystal clear that nothing like this has ever been experienced by the character before.
So he reaches up, you can feel it, and he holds up the device, and you can see that the prongs on the thing match the feeling of the plug. And he says, I'm just a little at first, okay?
Okay, sure.
Yeah, gimme some of that. I'll be gentle, tell me how it feels. I'm gonna give you just a little bit to start. It's been clear for a long time that all the players know some weird kinky robo stuff is going on, but as far as the character and how
He was expecting upgrades.
even if we're gonna litigate the make-believe, that's nonsense. In fact, in the roleplay, the very next thing she says about her character is,
And
Johnny has no idea
smiling
what this guy's
slightly,
about to do. No idea what
trembling
this
a
guy's
little.
going to do.
oh sorry, hang on a second, I thought...
He was expecting upgrades.
Sure, that was the original reason for going to the mechanic, before more happened, but it looks to me like you chose to roleplay a character who doesn't know what's happening or is going to happen, say yes to that unknown over and over and over, when you as the player clearly understood. Elspeth points out that Johnny doesn't know. She didn't say, hold on, what's going on? What is this? She said Johnny doesn't know, because she knew. At the very least, you knew it wasn't a repair and things were getting a bit kinky, and she was having him walk into it. On purpose.
He places the edge of the device against the port, and he presses a button. And Johnny has, for the first time in his entire life, whatever the equivalent of a robot orgasm.
What happens next is pure cinema.
Right there, it hits you like a truck. Your whole system
Generic shock morphs into a smile.
just like lights up with like
She looks at something, then looks forward again, and kills the smile into a mortified expression afterwards.
positive experience indicator.
If I may be so bold, I'd like to suggest that Elspeth is a slave to the judgment of others. The very first thing she says in her quitting call-out is that she's seen other people talking about it.
Hey everyone, Elspeth here. I've noticed that what happened on the final episode on season 2 of Far Verona is making its way through social media. I've been thinking about what to say since it happened.
This isn't weird or anything on its own, of course you're gonna see it. But why it matters is that her retelling cleaves to internet discourse on it, rather than the reality of what happened. For instance, she calls the mechanic a sexual predator NPC.
If you need to have a talk with your cast beforehand that you're planning on introducing a sexual predator NPC to one of their characters, I guarantee you, not one person would be okay with that.
But of course, there was no sexual predator NPC. There was a kinda creepy horny mechanic who backed off when rejected and only used the robot orgasm drug stick when told yes multiple times. What Adam provided was an NPC who would pursue Johnny, perhaps as that opportunity to say no Elspeth had asked for. Let's say in real life, someone's flirting with you. They pull out a syringe full of a mystery liquid. They tell you, ooh, I've done this before, I'll be gentle. Tell me how it feels. Let's start with just a little bit. And you have no idea what it is, but you say, yeah, do it. You haven't been preyed upon. Your consent hasn't been violated. You're just an idiot. And if that injection makes you come, you still haven't been raped. By the way, as an aside, is it literally just that he used the word orgasm? Because it was more like giving someone a drug than having sex with them. It wasn't even actually an orgasm, it was described as the robot equivalent. If he just said, this makes you feel amazing, would that have been okay even though it's the same thing and what made it sexual to begin with was everything preceding? Just wondering, because it sounds to me like a bit of a retarded line to draw, all considered. Now, of course, that session wasn't real and it was a cringe, gross, erotic roleplay. Adam chose chose specifically for it to have that effect, but none of it's real. The robot not understanding what was up isn't real either. Elspeth knew how things were heading, and she rolled with it. She dove into that pool of cringe, which brings us to, as she apparently likes to say, the kicker.
Especially not in front of hundreds of people.
That people saw it and judged it matters a lot to her. Listen to what she says about when she decided to message the DM about this.
I was shocked and angry. After everything went down and people were expressing their discomfort, I messaged Adam saying that this was not what I envisioned for Johnny.
After people started saying they were uncomfortable with it, her take immediately after was a little bit different.
I'm not sure. I'm 50-50 on it. I'm 50-50 on whether Johnny actually will enjoy that or not. So we'll see. We'll see.
Oh, but she's on a live stream. It's a show. She had to be diplomatic. You gotta say what you gotta say. What, you mean like when she had Johnny say yes 4 times to something unknown but obviously sexual? She was a collaborator in a roleplay that can only be compared to sexual assault because of her decisions. As far as I'm concerned, she's as much a toaster fucker as Adam is. That exact scenario was her doing just as much as his. More, really. As we saw, multiple times she had the opportunity to question herself, have her character question, or stop it. She didn't do nothing. She had her dude say yes. While the character being controlled didn't know what was happening and was getting into something that he might not be able to handle, she, the player, fully understood and decided for that to happen. When she saw the reaction to that situation, she architected. She needed to make sure no one saw it that way. At the time, I found it painfully transparent and embarrassing.
This isn't a question about what could have prevented it.
It was already creepy and weird before the sensation was described as the equivalent of a robot orgasm. But I agree, the question of how could it have been prevented isn't a good one. A more pertinent ask would be, why'd you have your guy say yes, yes, yes to all that? This level of clumsy framing should have raised some red flags. It's even more cringe than the robo-rape. Listen to this.
When Adam is literally the one in charge.
Actually, Adam should have been the one stopping her. I don't give a fuck that Adam was the DM. Do you understand that the woman talking like this about make-believe is older than me? 5 years ago, when this happened, she was still in her 30s. Do you understand that if you were upset for her, if you felt she was a victim, if you think this was purely Adam being a big bad, you have been played for PR purposes?
After rewatching the episode multiple times, I was no longer open to having my character or my name tied to this story, so I quit.
Nothing to do with me. The problem's the situation, and it's only this guy's fault. He was the DM, so nothing I did matters. He should never have let me have my character say yes all those times to obvious weird robot sex shit. Nope. Heat up the brand, boys. Toaster fucker for life. Elspeth and Adam made it weird together. Your choice not to say no, not to have him question, not to understand it and say yes, but instead, decide that your character doesn't understand but goes along with it anyway, made it even weirder. You were into it, you fucking freak. You wanted to see what was gonna happen, and you knew the vibe. This is unacceptable. I quit. I don't want to be associated with this. There's no way I could have known what was gonna come through that hole in the bathroom stall. When I was offered a sausage, I thought it would be a bratwurst. Fuck off. I am sick of people repeating this bullshit victim narrative. And they are literally repeating it. Crispy Tavern, whose video inspired me to make this one, literally reads out a Reddit post and concurs.
But as user Delanacio points out in their post on Hobby Drama about the situation, this was particularly bad for Adam. To fully grasp the magnitude of what just happened, let's review a few things. Adam Kobil, a well-known face of consent promotion and safe spaces in tabletop role-playing games, as a male game master, plays out what was clearly a pre-planned scene of non-consensual sex on one of the female player's characters. A player who, by the way, is a survivor of that kind of assault.
This planned rape story is just made up and is obviously not true if you look at what happened. The character was planned, the existence of such a device was surely planned. The mechanic wouldn't have used the device if the character hadn't said okay multiple times. The mechanic even explained that it's going to cause feelings and that it's not a repair.
No agency is given to the player.
People just say things. I think they even believe it. Does no one know what agency is? Anyway, I've yapped enough. Thanks Crispy's Tavern for the opportunity to talk about this. See you next time.